The Fighting Quails Part 3. Now one of the princes was passionately fond of quail fighting, and always at the Feast of Lanterns. Anybody who owned quails might go and fight them in the palace against the prince's birds. The landlord therefore said to Wang, "Here is a chance of enriching yourself by a single stroke, only I can't say what. Your luck will do for you." He then explained to him what it was, and away they went together, the landlord saying, "If you lose, burst out into lamentations, but if you are lucky enough to win, and the prince wishes, as he will, to buy your bird, don't consent. If he presses you very much, watch for a nod from me before you agree." This settled, they proceeded to the palace where they found crowds of quail fighters already on the ground, and then the prince came forth, heralds proclaiming to the multitude that any who wished to fight their birds might come up. Some man at once stepped forward, and the prince gave orders for the quails to be released, but at the first strike the stranger's quail was knocked out of time. The prince smiled, and by won several more mains, until at last the landlord said, "Now's our time," and went up together with Wang. The prince looked at their bird and said, "It has a fierce looking eye and strong feathers. We must be careful what we are doing." So he commanded his servants to bring out Iron Beak to oppose Wang's bird, but, after a couple of strikes, the prince's quail was signally defeated. He sent for a better bird, but that shared the same fate, and then he cried out, "Bring the jade bird from the palace." In a little time it arrived, with pure white feathers like an egret, and an unusually martial appearance. Wang was much alarmed, and falling on his knees prayed to be excused this main, saying, "Your Highness's bird is too good. I fear lest mine should be wounded, and my livelihood be taken from me." But the prince laughed and said, "Go on. If your quail is killed I will make it up to you handsomely." Wang then released his bird and the prince's quail rushed at it at once, but when the jade bird was close by, Wang's quail awaited its coming head down and full of rage. The former made a violent peck at its adversary, and then sprung up to swoop down on it. Thus they went on, up and down, backwards and forwards, until at length they got hold of each other, and the prince's bird was beginning to show signs of exhaustion. This enraged it all the more, and it fought more violently than ever, but soon a perfect snowstorm of feathers began to fall, and, with drooping wings, the jade bird made its escape. The spectators were much moved by the result, and the prince himself, taking up Wang's bird, examined it closely from beak to claws, finally asking if it was for sale. "My sole dependence," replied Wang, "is upon this bird. I would rather not part with it." "But," said the prince, "if I give you as much as the capital, say of an ordinary tradesman, will not that tempt you?" Wang thought some time, and then answered, "I would rather not sell my bird, but as your Highness has taken a fancy to it I will only ask enough to find me in food and clothes." "How much do you want?" inquired the prince, to which Wang replied that he would take 1,000 ounces of silver. "You fool!" cried the prince, "do you think your bird is such a jewel as all that?" "If your Highness," said Wang, "does not think the bird a jewel, I value it more than that stone which was priced at 15 cities." "How so?" asked the prince. "Why," said Wang, "I take my bird every day into the marketplace. It there wins for me several ounces of silver, which I exchange for rice, and my family, over 10 in number, has nothing to fear from either cold or hunger. What jewel could do that?" "You shall not lose anything," replied the prince, "I will give you 200 ounces. But Wang would not consent, and then the prince added another 100, whereupon Wang looked at the landlord, who, however, made no sign. Wang then offered to take 900, but the prince ridiculed the idea of paying such a price for a quail, and Wang was preparing to take his leave with the bird, when the prince called him back, saying, "Here! Here! I will give you 600. Take it or leave it as you please." Wang here looked at the landlord. And the landlord remained motionless as before. However, Wang was satisfied himself with this offer. And being afraid of missing his chance, said to his friend, "If I get this price for it I shall be quite content. If we go on haggling and finally come to no terms, that will be a very poor end to it all." So he took the prince's offer, and the latter, overjoyed, caused the money to be handed to him. Wang then returned with his earnings, but the landlord said to him, "What did I say to you? You were in too much of a hurry to sell. Another minute, and you would have got 800. When Wang got back he threw the money on the table and told the landlord to take what he liked, but the latter would not, and it was only after some pressing that he would accept payment for Wang's board. Wang then packed up and went home, where he told his story and produced his silver to the great delight of all of them. The old lady counselled the purchase of a quantity of land, the building of a house, and the purchase of implements. And in a very short time they became a wealthy family. The old lady always got up early in the morning, and made Wang attend to the farm, his wife to her spinning, and rated them soundly at any signs of laziness. The husband and wife henceforth lived in peace, and no longer abused each other, until at the expiration of 3 years the old lady declared her intention of bidding them adieu. They both tried to stop her, and with the aid of tears succeeded in persuading her, but the next day she had disappeared.